absolutely nothing, because if we're not working a day job, then it really doesn't matter. I want to make sure that before we get started, you guys know this. My sponsor for this show, incredible guitar shop right here in Beaverton, Oregon, 5-Star Guitars. They have great guitars. They have lessons. They've got repairs, everything you need for guitars, and no sales tax. So you're going to save a bunch of money, buy a great guitar, get lessons from some pros like Jennifer Batten and other local professionals. So go online to www.5starguitars.com and check out the inventory, help support local, and they will support me. So let them know I sent you. I appreciate it. And thanks again to Audix Microphones, based in Wilsonville, Oregon, for this microphone, these headphones, and a new partnership that we have coming up. So we'll announce that this week. In the meantime, another local band that's gone on to do great things nationally. So we talked a little bit about this in the setup. You know that we played some funny shows, but we're going to talk about all that and Mr. Rogers and everything else. I want to thank my friends, Chad and Rachel from Cloverdale. Thank you for being here, guys.
Heavy metal.
Hey, thanks for having us.
So good to see your face, buddy.
I know. It's been too long.
I'm glad you're here, man. You guys are in Nashville, Tennessee.
We are.
Yeah, 7 years.
Las Vegas. Like next month, it's going to be 7 years. It's hard to believe.
I can't believe it. I had a handful of Nashville folks on tomorrow.
Yeah.
Jim Riley from Rascal Flats.
Cool.
Got another drummer. We've got Rich Redmond on next week. Another Nashville
Rich is
guy,
our buddy.
Oh, really? Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We'll have to. We just booked him for the 8th, next Tuesday. So
no worries.
So funny. We were going to tell you after that, and we were like, we need to connect you with Rich Redmond.
If he isn't already, if Kevin wasn't, then
I mean, everybody knows Rich Redmond. Rich Redmond knows everybody, and everybody knows Rich. But
he's a workhorse.
But he is such a sweet dude.
He's like the Nashville Tim Ellis.
Yeah.
You know, he reminds us so much.
Yes.
Like, you know,
man. Well,
Timmy.
I heard that we have a whole bunch of mutual friends that connected me with Rich, and and of course we got to talk about Tim Ellis today. There's a ton of history that you guys have. I mean, that we have together.
That we have.
Absolutely.
So one thing I try not to do in these conversations with my friends is make this sort of interview style. It should be conversational, right? So we got to talk about super fun stuff. So I'm going to talk about the first time that I met Chad. Chad was teaching drums at a local shop here in Oregon City, Oregon, south of Portland. And when we first met, Chad, you were the biggest Motley Crue fan. Tommy Lee was
still am.
Okay, I was wondering, man, because you're in Nashville. I mean, I know that most Nashville artists are, they're rockers at heart. They're pretty much rock bands with a little bit of twang, But I wondered if that fascination with Motley has faded at all, or if
no, I still have my entire collection. It just lives in a bin, but it's still in my possession. I could take it all out and put it up like all of our room if we wanted to, but it's not going to happen. But all my posters.
Operative word there is if we wanted to, and that would be a no.
No, that was just a huge part of my childhood, and it blew open the doors for what I was going to do. Even though it's not drums, I'm playing guitar. It's still,
But and for a lot of people that don't know, Chad initially was the drummer, and so that Tommy Lee was, a big influence.
He's just
for
a
him
groove
for
guy, and he was so inspired by Bonham.
Yeah.
So you could hear that in his playing,
You want to talk a little bit about that? So you were a drummer at first. I know that you grew up in Oregon City, right? Is that right?
I actually grew up in Lake Oswego.
Oh, you did? Okay.
We met in
at Clackamas Community
Junior College. Clackamas Community College.
I was still in high school, so yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
That was like 3 years ago?
No,
exactly.
It was.
Well, now that you mention it, because I am still 28. I mean, I've been 28 again for a little bit now, but that was I was in high school, and I was there with my high school jazz choir because we were both in jazz programs. Chad was in the Clackamas jazz program. I was in my high school jazz program, and we were there for the Clackamas Jazz Festival. And we met that way. We started dating the following year when I stared attending the junior college.
Okay, and he waited until you. A little while. It was a few months later.
But then it was like I was dabbling with the guitar. Nothing as serious as the drums.
Yeah.
But and then we just put it together. Guitar, voice, and it worked. So we started playing coffee shops and doing that whole thing, and here I am now playing guitar way more than I'm playing drums.
I know
guitar, but I love it, and
you've gotten your chops together too. I've seen some videos from your shows, and you seem like you've gotten it down.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
Man, well, you know, man, I wonder about that. In Nashville, you've got sort of like all the greatest musicians or at your arm's reach, you know. So
oh yeah.
You guys are writing songs. Do you have a dedicated band behind you that you work with primarily, or you just have session guys, or you do it yourself?
Well, so some we do ourselves. We've worked with Steve Senholm, who's out of Oregon, as he's been our producer. We've co-produced everything with him for really forever. Like all the Cloverdale projects we've done with Steve. And also then like we did a couple songs with Rich Redmond and Tori and Kurt from Aldean's band. We did a couple songs, but other than that, we've done everything else with Steve. But we've always flown him out here, and then we use session guys here because they're just so phenomenal. And not to say that there aren't phenomenal players in Oregon, because there are so many great ones. But for all of our records, that's the way we've done it. It's made the most sense. We can get everybody together at one time. And I mean, I think it's probably going to look a little different moving forward, I'm guessing, with all of the coronas, you know, to see how many people they want to pack into a small space for hours at a time. But the last full records, that's what we've done. But like on our latest single, Phil Baker who plays with Pink Martini, he played bass on that one. And Keith Summers, he's played in our live band for a long time in Oregon when we've done shows out there. He played on the latest single. But then we had Evan Hutchings from Nashville. And I don't know if you know Evan, but he's a phenomenal session drummer here.
Amazing. He's played on the Maren Morris records, a lot of records.
So many records. I mean, he's so great. So we had kind of a mix of the Nashville studio guys, and because we did that one all pretty much remotely, this last single. So that was kind of how we had to piece it together. We did a combo.
Yeah. Were you know, for the tech heads, the musicians out there that are recording, so you did it remotely. Were you doing Pro Tools on your own and having other artists do that stuff, and then having your engineer merge those?
Right. So Steve had it all. He had everybody sending him stems. Everybody was recording on whatever, you know, DAW they were working on. So I'm guessing most of those guys use Pro Tools, but you know, for those that weren't, Steve was then putting it into Pro Tools and mixing it there. And for us, I do all of our stuff from here on Pro Tools and then send it to Steve. So
I mean, it's weird when you're not all gathered, but at the same time, that the technology and the ability to be able to do that is amazing.
You know, had that technology not been around prior to coronavirus, you know, imagine how much different things would be, really. You know, at least the socially distant thing. I mean, you're really socially distant right now, you know, like thousands of miles away, but it is fortunate, I guess. I mean, we talk about it a lot on the show, the silver linings, you know, of what you can find.
Absolutely.
And all these artists that you talked about, you know, I mean, these are amazing pros. You know, one of the first and true professional musicians that I ever met when you guys were working back here. You know, I can't even tell you how inspiring he was to me. Tim Ellis is somebody that you guys worked with a lot.
Yes.
He's a one of a kind.
Yeah. You know, I mean, when I first moved here from Montana in '94, Tim and Craig Carruthers were the first combo that I got to see. And I was blown away by that combo. Of course, Craig is out there in Nashville with you guys now. But when I saw Tim play, I was blown away by his energy and his sort of his personality on stage. When we talked, I could not believe that this guy had 6 kids, and he was putting all of his kids through college at that point, and he was only doing it through music. And he was the first guy that I met that was actively playing music for a living, taking, you know, and that was his whole living, and taking care of his family too. And
I know.
I talked to so many students after that about, you know, how hard you have to work to make music be your primary career.
Yes, very hard.
And hardly anybody on the planet had as much energy as Tim, right? So he would do like 10 gigs a week, because he'd do a couple of church gigs, and then he'd go off and do a couple sessions, and then he'd go off and play a club gig.
He would do like 14 to 20 gigs a week. I'm not even kidding. Like he was there were some nights that he had three shows. Like he'd have an afternoon thing, and then he'd have like 2 evening shows. And it was classic Tim. He'd show up, like plug his guitar in and play. Like he would show up at start time, which for me,
you're panicking.
I'm panicking. I'm having a full blown like meltdown. Like, oh my gosh, Tim, you're putting me through the ringer every time. But at the same time, he was never late.
Right.
He was never late, and he never flaked. So he was always there. He was consistent. So eventually it became like, okay, Tim's gonna get here in time. He will know his stuff. He will do his job, and it will be fine. But yeah,
it was mind blowing, and it never showed. He never looked exhausted.
No,
I couldn't tell you a time that he looked exhausted. We'd go out and stay out until 2, 3 in the morning.
After a show,
He'd get up at 6 in the morning, have sessions, have lessons, do a gig. He'd do it all over again.
Yeah.
You know, and he never stopped. I'm
and
like,
somewhere
how
in
does
there,
he do it?
Yeah, somewhere in there he was a dad. Somewhere,
Yeah.
and somewhere in there he was a husband, and he did all the things well. It was amazing how successful he was in all different arenas. You know,
he just balanced it perfectly. You know,
Yeah.
It's like he impacted so many people in the industry, outside of the industry. Just like a superhuman.
Yeah.
That's superhuman is right. Tiffany, his daughter, that completed the documentary, This Is Tim. I went to the premiere. I was so moved by it, and I think anybody that worked with Tim and knew Tim knew just how influential he was in like a bunch of different ways. As a drummer, he made me 10 times the drummer that I was prior, just because you had to keep up and listen so much, but I was thinking about it for you guys. He really worked with you guys. You were doing a lot of stuff at South Lake, right? And I know that he was really influential in putting together your band and helping sort of direct that band, right? Is that
yes, absolutely. Okay. Right there at the beginning, 2008.
Yeah. So what, and I was gonna say, so I mean, obviously we'd played together. We'll talk more about that later, I'm sure. But with you prior to that, but when we launched Cloverdale, so all of a sudden, so we're not really contest people, but all of a sudden there was this thing through the local radio station, through the Wolf there in Portland, that it was whoever won this battle of the bands, where you could submit a video, and whoever got selected, they were going to select like 4 bands for the battle of the bands. And then whoever won the battle of the bands got to open for Kenny Chesney and
Clark County Amphitheater.
Yeah.
2008.
I think it's called something else now, right?
Sleep Country now.
Sleep Country. Okay.
Yeah, but it's the dumbest name ever, I think.
Yeah.
Sleep Country. Talk about a high energy show.
I know.
Sleep Country.
They set up mattresses for all the seats.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, now they got to distance people, so but the thing was, we already had tickets for the concert, and I was like, well, it'd be cooler to open it.
Yeah, it would.
So let's try it. So, but
we were a brand new band. I mean, Cloverdale, we literally
as a new project. It was a new project. Yeah.
So we had literally launched Cloverdale. Hadn't played a show yet.
Really?
Like it was within like the same month that the contest came out.
Right.
We had Cloverdale decided that was going to be our.
So we were going to do it acoustic.
Okay.
And then
but part of the rules were you had to have a full band.
Okay.
No.
Even if you were a duo, right? For the contest.
I don't remember that was the rules.
Yeah.
I just remember you talking. No, I think we were still going to do it acoustic.
Yeah.
But then I remember you talking to Tim, and Tim was like, let's put something together. I think it'd be great. Let's put something together. We'll put something together to back it. So then he talked to, it was Rob Stroop and Jamin
Swenson.
Yeah, everybody that was there.
Burrow.
Yeah. And Carl
Smith
at the
percussion. Yeah.
So everybody that was like
awesome.
playing with us at South Lake on Sunday morning became like the backup band for this. And then we not only got selected as the top 4, but then we did the Battle of the Bands, which we won. But the Battle of the Bands at Duke's,
that was the first
Cloverdale show.
Are you kidding me? Wow.
And then that new of
the
a
second Cloverdale show was opening for Kenny Chesney.
Wow.
And we were so green, it's just like, what is happening? We couldn't believe it.
You say green. I mean, you guys had done a ton of shows prior to that,
Yeah.
but I know you had a built-in draw too, even though Cloverdale hadn't played, you had so many people that believed in
we
you
had
guys
a lot of people.
and you guys were not. And but I cannot believe, I remember that Duke's event. I was out of town, but I remember seeing YouTube clips from people putting it up. And I think MySpace was even around then too.
Probably.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For
sure.
I was so proud to see what you guys did. I wasn't surprised, but
that's awesome.
like we should back up prior to Cloverdale, right? So
let's back it up. Let's back it up a little bit, because this it will explain our.
I laugh about it now, okay? Because we've both done a couple of things between then and now, but I think back to the first shows that we did together.
Mm-hmm.
It was great that you guys got booked for a bunch of assemblies in the greater Portland area, and you had this positive message. It was this really uplifting, almost an up with
play
people
for the kids.
So,
the kids,
middle school and high school kids.
But and here's the thing, and
it was a quirky idea.
In all honesty, I would say let's do it again. In some ways, if it wasn't like COVID,
right.
But because of the fact that so Chad had this idea that at least I think it was your idea, right? Yeah. Most good ideas when it comes to booking things is Chad's
Not
idea.
necessarily, but that's a weird, like,
true.
Hold on a second before you continue.
Yeah.
Folks, if you're watching this and you haven't met Chad and Rachel, this is why they're still together as a couple, right? There's so much, there's respect for each other. There's so much sort of cooperation. So anyway, go ahead.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yes.
No,
yes.
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Thank you. Yeah. So, but no, really, truly, Chad does have great. He's the visionary with lots of things. And I'm more like the checklist and like let's budget it and make it make sense kind of person. It takes that balance. Yeah. I'm a strange creative in that way. I don't know. I'm not a typical musician in that way. But Chad's idea was, hey, so if we're looking at like at that point, who was kind of buying music or determining the kind of the direction of music and things like that, and who would be a good like sample audience that also we can get in front of a lot of people in a short period of time, because it's true. I mean, kids, is sort of determining like what the next phase of music is going to look like in the world. A lot of times it starts with middle school and high school kids. Right. So it was, hey, let's just go put it out there in front of them and see what kind of reaction we get and test songs out and see what happens. And it was so fun. And there are still, there are people that are no longer kids today, but that were kids at that time that were like, I remember when you guys came and played at my middle school or my high school, and it was so cool. And it was, it is, I remember when I was in middle school and high school, whenever you saw somebody that, even if they were just a little bit older, like if you were in middle school, if it was the high schoolers came to your school and did stuff, it was like, oh my gosh, I want to be able to do that. And I just remember the number of students that we ended up getting from that situation, to teach privately, and also just gigs that came from it and everything else, because it's inspiring. It's like somebody that's just a few years older than you are that is doing something that you would love to be able to do. Totally. And like all of a sudden you can see it as, oh, this is something I could actually do. Like, you know, not just in my living room.
And but it was so different to do it like at their lunchtime.
Yeah,
which that was we
did it at lunch.
That was the
wasn't actually assemblies.
Yeah, it wasn't like
lunch.
an assembly.
That's true.
It was like a lunchtime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys go ahead and finish your meal.
Yeah.
Even weirder. It wasn't assemblies. It
That's
was
true.
actually during lunch.
So the kids are all eating their food like,
what is going on?
That's true. And
Awesome, but why?
It seems like I remember even setting up on lunch tables. You know, like places that didn't have a stage, you know, and because I was stealing drum rugs. I would forget that we weren't on stage at certain places. Yeah. So I'd use the little carpet mats that were inside the school. And then put those on the lunch tables. But you know, it's funny.
For your riser.
Yep, exactly. These, you know, the people from back in the day, I know it jumped ahead, but Rick Bartell said that you guys played with Cloverdayle right when you started. After his band at the Oregon Jamboree in 2008, he said he was very impressed with the band. So man, you know, reaching out to these students at that age, you know, I think if you had an opportunity to go back now, okay, because that was around 2000, right? Wasn't that about 20 years ago? If you could go back now.
See, and I was 8. This is how the math is
that's
working
right.
out.
Yeah,
I was 8. I was 8, and so obviously that's how that worked out math-wise.
You're perpetually 28. I love it.
Exactly. Hey,
if you, honestly, man, if you could go back now and look at what's gone on in the last 20 years, thinking about, first of all, a couple that stays together in the music industry, you know, the music industry is so rare, right? You know, the fact that you guys actually can still be in the same confined space.
We like each other even. It's so weird.
It's crazy. But if you could go back and talk to some of those kids now about the music industry, how things have changed, how important it is to follow certain paths. Mm-hmm. I would bet that your message now would be a lot different than it was back then, right? You know,
well, you know, I think yes and no, because there's something like we're odd ducks in this one, in that we've always we both knew early on that in order to do something significant in the music business, we needed to actually treat it like a business. Yeah. And so that's something that I think a lot of people, when you're young and starting out, you forget that it's a business, or you would like to believe that it's not in some ways. I think that there's like, and not to say that we weren't ideal, like we still had the big dreams, and we still do, but we've intentionally remained hungry and wanting to learn and wanting to kind of figure out where the industry's going, but also always remember that it is also the business. So if you want to do music for fun, awesome, do it. And then make sure you have a different job. Yeah. Because if you want to do the music business as a business, you have to treat it like a business. You've got to do budgets. You've got to there's all different things that you have to do to really treat it like a business. So even then, I remembered having this conversation with students saying like, okay, well, if you're going to go to the number of musicians that are like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to college to, and get my degree in music. I'm like, okay, like music performance. I'm like, awesome. Not really a necessary major. Like really, like that's awesome because you can get more knowledge, but you can get that without actually the degree. So instead get your degree in business and minor in music. And then you've got this great solid plan to guide you through the music industry. And as the backup, then if you need a backup or if you decide the music industry is not your jam, then you can pretty much do anything with a business degree. So, with the exception of like brain surgery or, law, I don't, but there are some things that you probably need some additional schooling for, but for us, it was, for us, there was also never a plan B. Like we always knew that we wanted to do this, and we've continued to, there's just never been another option. Like this is what we do.
It is amazing because we feel like, I feel like we're still doing the same thing we were back then. Yes, it's grown and we're wiser because of the things you go through, but it's crazy. I mean, here we are 20 years later, still chasing it, you know, and we want the chase. We want that to always be there. It's like, you don't want to just settle and be like, all right.
The well, I mean, really where you're at, had you wanted to be complacent and sort of, sedentary, you could have stayed in Portland, right?
Right.
But I mean, the fact that you went to Nashville, which is really the sort of the capital of the world in terms of country music, then there's no way you could rest on your laurels. You've got to be always moving, always progressing.
Right.
And I know.
Okay.
I was just going to say, most people that I know that went to Nashville, I would say 90% of the people that go have one perspective or one idea about what Nashville is going to hold for them. They get there and they come back with a tail between their legs 6 weeks later, because it's just
happens all the time.
Yeah, it does. And I know I've mentioned on the show, there is a community there that's really supportive. If you come in to be a collective, if you're contributing to the scene, not to come in and try and take over gigs and try and snake gigs from somebody else, but if you come in contributing, then I think that's really where I've seen it successful with a lot of people.
Absolutely.
So when you guys first decided to come, I think you made a couple of jaunts out there, right? Didn't you kind of go out, test the waters a little bit?
Yeah, usually a few times a year we were booking trips to Nashville for a week or two at a time. And really, because we tell people this story a lot, just because I think also your goal in the music industry is sort of what's also going to define like what path that takes for us. It wasn't so much the rich and famous thing, because honestly, that's not necessarily, there's not necessarily longevity in that, especially in Nashville. There's some, and for some people that's true. But
and you're bound to be disappointed if it doesn't happen. And if that's the focus, if that's the goal,
if that's the goal,
you're going to be let down.
So instead, if for us, it was always like, we want to be able to make a living in the music business. And you can absolutely do that with a lot of people in the world never knowing your name or your songs. Like really, you can still make a living in the music business without that. For us, moving to Nashville was really, as songwriters, we wanted to actually come and experience that part of the scene here, less of the live music scene, because for us, we do so much of that all over the country. We're up to 42 states that we've been in and been through. Like we've gotten to see a lot of the country and play so many cool places and so many cool festivals and play with so many people. But for us, Nashville was really more of the songwriting heartbeat piece of it. And we're both very passionate songwriters. We love the writing process and the writing piece of it. And so for us, that was really more of what motivated us to make the trip, to make the move to Nashville. And we also didn't want to be saying our shoulda, woulda, coulda as like, hey, 10 years from now, we should have gone to Nashville and tried that out. We were planning on coming here for at least a year, and it's been 7.
So when you set a year goal, that's an interesting thing, because a lot of people, I think, they'll do the same thing if they go to LA, right? They'll say, if I don't quote unquote make it in the first year, then
and what does that mean? Right.
I mean, I know what it meant when I was 18, right? I like my desperation to go to Los Angeles was that it was the heart of the Sunset Strip era, right? So I wanted to go and rock and make sure that my hair was teased high enough to do that.
I could probably do that now.
I was like, look at how long my hair is.
My quarantine hair is
it's like getting near mine.
Just let it go.
I just got the purple back in mine because I let the color go.
Love that.
If I wasn't gigging, but but it's interesting that for me, when I stopped trying so hard to quote unquote make it, when I really made it about just the passion of the music, I think then it became more authentic, and so
definitely.
And that's one thing that I've loved about you guys is that even though I knew that Chad, your roots were, Motley Crue and you're a rocker guy at heart, but truly the way that you guys write your music, it's not a rock band trying to be like a country band to fit into a scene or, I knew that about you guys. Your influences, you could tell, especially you, Rachel, you could hear influences from the really powerful country artists, and like you mentioned like jazz choir early on when you were in high school and college, but you've got a really powerful voice. And it's there's this one thing about your band, and I'm not telling you this because we're friends, but there are a lot of bands that kind of rely on studio magic to kind of help so fortify somebody that might not have the power behind the voice. And you've had it. You have like the sort of fundamental skills of the Christina Aguileras of the world, but also the pop sensibility of a Taylor Swift, and Shania Twain's and
Tay.
So when you first got to Nashville and you had that year goal in mind, did you know anybody in Nashville that could kind of be like a landing pad for you? All right.
We did. And that was really what kind of was the catalyst. We tell everybody that talks about moving to Nashville, we're like, you know what? You need to visit first. Get to the place where where good places to eat are and some good places that you can go do open mic nights, or writers nights, and meet a few people so that then when you move to town, it's not like you just got off the bus and I don't know where I'm going. What do I do? Who do I talk to? It's like you figured out some of the scene before you've gotten here. So for us, we were coming like multiple, at least a couple times a year for probably 4 or 5 years before we moved here. Yeah. So
at least.
So we had kind of gotten to know the neighborhoods we liked and the areas we liked. And we knew a lot of people in town, like the Rich Redmonds and Terry McBride, who was big with Brooks and Dunn, and he was McBride and the Ride. He's got a new projects coming out, and just some great musicians and some great writers. We have some friends at some publishing companies that hooked us up with writings, co-writes with some of their writers and some of their staff writers. And so it was good because we already kind of had that established knowledge and comfort level to a certain extent before we even moved here. And like our landlords are personal friends, you know what I mean? So it was kind of, it's just been,
and they're with Curve Records.
It was an easy transition for us. I mean, as easy as it could be.
They understand the business, they understand the industry, and they're just great people too. So
so
that's why we've been in the same house for 7 years too.
You know what? I mean, really amazing now, right? Because they understand what's kind of going on with COVID as a musician, how much different. Not everybody I talk to in the shows in the music industry, right? But everybody, of course, on the planet is affected by it, right? So if you've got landlords and sort of partners that understand the business, they're a little bit more patient and understanding, if rent's got to be paid on the 3rd instead of the 1st or something like that. But you mentioned about the publishing, that you had a publishing company that hooked you up with some songwriting opportunities. That is really special. So tell me about that. How did you had publishing set up before you moved to Nashville when you were here in Portland?
Well, so we've never actually pursued publishing deals, which is, we probably should do that at one of these days. I don't know, like we haven't gotten to that point yet where we've really pursued that. Of course, we've written plenty of music and we've got extensive catalogs at this point, but really, so what's funny is the neighbor of one of the guys that we stayed with that was not in the music industry at all, but we had met his mom on a plane. The funniest stories you can tell. We met his mom on a plane, and his mom was fantastic. He's fantastic. And he had this like furnished basement kind of apartment that had like a separate entrance. And so we would just like rent from him when we would come to town.
We stopped staying in the hotels when we come to town. We'd stay at his place.
Yeah, so we just had this place, and it was in Brentwood, so it was close by.
And he would get to know his neighbors, and he had this new neighbor that had moved in that he found out was in the business and working with publishing. And
so he was like, hey, I've got these artists, they're going to be in town. They come and stay with me. I'd love to introduce you. So we met him like over a cocktail at our friend Craig's house. Like, I mean, it was not one of those things where we had to go knocking on doors. It was literally through, which, let's face it, most things in the music industry that are lasting are really relationally based. And Nashville is one of those towns for sure. Relationships are everything, but also, and there are a lot of people that don't do it this way, but there are a lot of very inauthentic relationship builders out there that are literally just looking to you to be the next stepping stone in their music career. And it's really pretty easy to smell that kind of a mile away. So for us, it's always been very important in our entire career thus far. It's always been very important to us that the relationship is more important, because that's the part that lasts. Like the music business, you can have fame tomorrow, you can have money tomorrow, and we've seen it with people, but your actual relationships with people, your actual friendships, your actual like the love and reciprocation and all those kinds of things, that if you stepped on people to get to where you are, you'll be really lonely up there by yourself.
Because honestly, the reputation precedes you then, right? You have people know that you're that type of person, whether you're in Nashville or LA or New York or Portland. I mean, it's all the same in that respect. I've seen that too for time and time again. And people, I would bet, that come to you as, fledgling new artists, and they say, hey, how did you get X, Y, and Z gig? And a lot of times you'll say, it's because I knew this person. I was friends with that person. I wasn't friends with that person to get the gig.
Exactly. Right? I was gonna say, you have to be friends for real. Yeah.
And
like it makes it a real relationship. Yeah.
Like going back to Tim Ellis, you think about how many people he touched. And I think that was really deeply rooted, that I looked at all the relationships he had and really sincere relationships from all the local musicians that respected him because of his authenticity and his humility. I mean, being humble is such a huge part of it, right?
Huge part of it.
When you guys were there, I know when Craig Carruthers moved out there, I had heard that he wrote a song for Trisha Yearwood, I think in the Con Air soundtrack or something like that. And
I think you're right.
It was huge, right? Won a Grammy, and that was like his at least first stable base where he could said, okay, at least I can identify with songwriting here in Nashville. I can stay. I mean, he's a great songwriter, but a really humble guy. I've never met somebody so humble. But I think about being a new artist and going to Nashville and just being scared to death. If you didn't know anybody,
right?
If you walked into the Bluebird Cafe, right, and you see one of those open mics and you see all these incredible people that you've never heard their name before, and the songs are so good, and then
songs,
and they said, "Oh yeah, I wrote this song for X, Y, and Z person who's made millions of dollars and Grammys off this records," and that's either going to inspire you or it's going to send you packing, right? So,
well, and that's.
That was our first experience with Nashville, by the way.
Years ago.
It was
way before the Cloverdale project. Even we came through town when we were on tour, and we did. It wasn't an open mic, but it wasn't the regular open mic though. I'm not really sure. But we saw we got to play, but we also then went and saw a show. And the woman that wrote a big Garth Brooks hit,
The River,
was playing. And it was like, and to be able to hear the writer that wrote these big hit songs and the Bluebird, people don't know, because we've gotten to play there actually many times, which we feel is so incredibly fortunate for that. But it's a tiny place. People don't realize how small it is. And you're squeezed into this little space, and the writers are like, I mean, you can literally reach out and touch someone for real. Like, I mean, it's like
Buffalo Gap back home, right?
Right there.
Right. It's
You're super close. Yeah. You're super up close and personal. I mean,
very similar.
If you're spitting on people,
that's why they're not open right now.
Right. You can spit on.
Exactly. You can spit on.
No social distance.
It's impossible to do in there. But it is also, we tell people it's such a magical space and such a magical room because of the fact that there's just, and they actually have, like, they'll shush you if you talk when a writer is performing, when an artist is performing. So it's like dead silent, and there's such a different energy when people are truly listening. You hear so much more in a song when you're actually listening to all of those nuances and all those lyrics that you don't hear in like a regular bar situation where everybody's talking, or like they'll catch part of the song, or like, oh, I really like this chorus, and then they've not heard the verse leading up to it. But when they capture your whole song, good or bad, it's really cool.
That's where the artist and the listener both have a better experience.
Exactly.
It's
true. It's like
really
this mutual experience that everybody kind of shares. It's a really great venue. And I don't know where we started with that, with the other than the fact that it's a fantastic.
No, it's just where we experience Bluebird. You know?
And I brought it up because I said, a lot of times people come there and they'll go there and they'll have that experience where they see this incredible performance and realize that, wow, I've never even heard of that person. How can I compete? And I know Scott Southworth, who was a Portlander and a friend of mine who's down in Nashville. He's a lot down there. He talked about how, what was his particular experience? I'm trying to think. I think he said that the initial hope when people would go is that they would try, they would hope that if they could just land that open mic at the Bluebird, they'd get signed. They get signed. Yeah. Right. And then, but that doesn't just happen anymore. That it's not one of those deals where record label execs are walking in going, oh yeah, there's the next Taylor Swift. I'm going to sign a record deal.
So what's interesting with that, just to jump in, because that it's such a funny story that you just told that. So at the beginning of the COVIDs, we had just come off of a McMenamin's run in the Northwest. And we were like, okay, we need to do something that's fun for us, like to kind of inspire us. We took about a month where we were just like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And then we're like, let's get creative. So we were like, let's do, so we called it Country Music and Shenanigans. And we did this half-hour long, like kind of country music and shenanigans special that we did on YouTube. And, but the interview that we did was with Barbara Cloyd. And I don't know if you know who Barbara Cloyd is, but she is the originator of the Nashville open mic at the Bluebird. Oh, and so she still is, she's been doing the open mic for like how many ever years it's been, 30 some odd years. And she's still super involved with the Bluebird. But she was that person. And I don't know if you ever saw the movie, it's now so old. I think it's called That Thing Called Love, but it was
the early 90s.
It was Samantha Mathis, River Phoenix, Dermot Mulroney, Sandra Bullock, like all very, very young.
It's all based around the Bluebird.
You need to watch it, but it's all based around the Bluebird and the open mic night. And so for me, I remember watching that, like I was probably in middle school. I don't know. But I remember seeing that. I remember seeing that movie and going, someday it'd be so cool to go to Nashville and to play the Bluebird. And it really is sort of a rite of passage to be able to actually, because it's like, and it's a lottery to even go watch a show there. I mean, it's really hard to even go see a show there. It literally, you have to get on a queue on your computer at 8 a.m. Central Time on certain days of the week in order to get certain shows, like a week to 2 weeks after that. So it's really, really hard to even get in to see a show, mostly because of the show Nashville.
It's so small, and it's like the tickets, they're gone in.
Well, and I mean, for the early shows, it's not even, it's free tickets. Like you pay $3 to save your seat or something. I mean, and then there's a drink minimum.
Sure.
But in order to even get in the door, it's this whole lottery system to be able to go. But the show Nashville, I don't know if you ever watched it, but that's sort of what re-energized the whole Bluebird scene and really made it, like I said, impossible to get into at the time. Yeah, for the last few years. Now that's all changing again.
And now there's a documentary that came out recently, which we have yet to see.
We haven't seen it yet.
We're meaning to see it, but yeah.
Speaking of TV and movies too, is that something that you guys have gotten involved in terms of songwriting for?
We actually have a song that's featured in the show Heartland, which is based out of Canada. Netflix picked it up. I don't know if it's still.
So we had a song on Netflix. It was very exciting.
For the first time, we can say we actually had a song in a show, but also on Netflix.
Which means instead of getting 4 cents every, we'd get $4 every quarter for being on.
But what was cool about that is we didn't write the song for the show.
No,
it was already written. It just happened to work for what they were looking for.
Yeah.
So which has kind of opened our minds to pursuing that more.
Well, that's the thing, because some people just write for that goal in mind, and they go through licensing companies and they say, please submit my stuff to, film festivals and TV and all that. So do you have a person that handles your licensing for you that sort of goes after opportunities, or is that you guys just in the trenches?
That was, so that particular one was set up by one person that does kind of licensing things, but no, we don't actually have somebody specific that does that. We have with some of the co-writes and the co-pubs that we have, that publisher has reached out to, different people. And then we have a song right now that's not a Cloverdale song, but one that we wrote for a pop artist, Lovey James, and she's out of Portland. So we actually wrote, we co-wrote with the Sun Holmes and Sun with Lovey for her record. So we actually, and it sounds nothing like the stuff that we do. It's not Cloverdale songs, the stuff we wrote for Lovey. But so we did, is it like 5 or 6 songs on her record, I think. But one of them actually just got added to or this last year got added to a major motion picture in Latin America.
Oh,
so
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool. I mean, it's not us doing it, but it's our song. So, there are some of those things.
As you know, I mean, that is really where you can extend your brand, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, the true artists that are having some longevity, if you're looking for mailbox money, you're looking for your there is no retirement plan. There's no 401k in music business.
Nope. You make your own.
That's the way to do it though, right? I mean, when you've got songwriting that's out there and artists are picking it up, that's the goal. I mean, that's like the gold ticket, And,
yes.
Once Tommy Lee hears, the next Cloverdale thing, and he wants to do a TikTok of it,
I like it.
Tommy Lee, he's doing some crazy stuff. He's always changing and going in different directions than a lot of people would imagine. They think he's just going to be doing a rocker thing, but he's always explored like beats and rhythms and the electronic side of things, which that's his deal.
It is. I mean, to be able to just expand outside, if all you have as an identity is Motley Crue, it's pretty finite, right? It's going to there's a cap. But now as far as things go with you mentioned writing the songs for Lovey James. I know her stuff. She's a great, pop artist here in town. That I wouldn't even say really here in town. I mean, she's kind of expanding outside the Portland area.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what she's doing right now, but that like as of a year or two ago when we were writing this, she was definitely she was still in Portland when we were doing the writing thing.
I think she's been doing stuff with Hit Machine.
Oh, okay. That's
that's possible.
One of their projects.
Okay.
Because I know they have a couple different machines that they've been doing. Yeah.
Well, it seems like I remember seeing some travel dates for her prior to COVID, where she was actually getting outside the Northwest, which is a great thing. But I was going to say stylistically, aside from pop, can you guys imagine writing some songs that would be completely outside your wheelhouse for, some, like, back to your roots, Chad, the heavy rock stuff?
Right.
Or,
actually what's interesting is a lot of there's a reason why there's a lot of big like 80s rockers that live in Nashville, because actually if you just change the production on a lot of those songs, they're fantastic country songs. Oh, yeah. I mean, really, like they're almost more so than a lot of pop songs, especially current pop. But if you go back to like,
or even current country songs that are leaning more towards the pop and less the stories,
Right.
But I'm trying to think of like, what's the like I Saw Red,
White Snake,
like
Here I Go Again,
Here I Go Again on my own. I mean, like something where it's if you just change all the production on it. It could be a country song.
Yeah, I could definitely see
Cabin. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
if you guys, country song.
If you guys were going to do a collaboration, right, with like some like rock artists, I mean, Tommy was doing the collaboration with like hip hop guys, right? So he's got that
Post Malone and those guys,
right? Yeah. Would Cloverdale like match up with Post Malone for a collaboration? You think?
I don't. We haven't really delved into that much. It's like, for us.
But I will say this, because we love so many different types of music. So yes, we are in the country genre for sure. We love country music. We're songwriters, and so that very much is us. But we love and appreciate so many different types of music. So for us, that's super fun. Like, I mean, we listen to a ton of pop music and rock music on a regular basis. So for us, doing some sort of mashup, that's honestly in some ways easier than trying to necessarily pigeonhole yourself into the genre you're supposed to be in some ways, because it's like, oh well, you get to experiment with stuff.
Well, country music has always been about the stories. It's been, that's the writing and that.
Well, historically
that's
what
it's
it's about.
It is true. So
I
think that's what we've always been drawn to, listening to country music, being fans of country music.
But even if you go back to like earlier, like Sarah McLachlan and Jewel and all that, and Sheryl Crow, I mean, it's just country songs that at the time that was considered pop music. But if you were to put that on pop radio now, it wouldn't fit at all.
Right.
It would be you put those old songs onto like a country radio station and change the production ever so slightly, it's going to sound like a country song way more so than if you were to put it on a pop station. Whereas that was fully pop, in the late 90s,
it's amazing to go back and just watch that evolution.
That's true. There was almost if you went back 20 years and you thought about those 20 those pop songs, Yeah, they wouldn't fit on commercial pop radio anymore. But I can when you just sang the Whitesnake song, I can completely hear that as a country song now.
Oh yeah,
right.
David Coverdale.
Throw some banjo on there, and
right.
Yeah, see Coverdale with Cloverdale.
Yeah. Oh,
there's our matchup.
That's Dave, if you're watching right now, here's your chance to like evolve and stay in the now. You've got that's what All Access Live can do for you. See, we're partnering.
I love it.
I don't need any points off that at all. Just put me on the list, and I'll come out and see that show. He's still doing it too. It's crazy. There's still Whitesnake stuff, but I would imagine that I don't think anything on the new Whitesnake album sounds very evolved and in the country style. But
they've kind of stuck with their thing. That's cool.
I'm interested to know about some of your touring now. Like, did you actually get a chance to go out with some national acts and do some touring with some of these bigger shows? Because I know that all these great artists out there.
Right.
I was wondering if maybe you paired up with some of those artists to tour.
So we did a lot of opening shows, especially when we were still in the Northwest, and even festivals kind of crossing the country now. We've done a lot of shows with big artists. We didn't actually necessarily do tours with them, but like we've played shows with several different major. So we've played shows with Kenny Chesney and Lady Antebellum, Eric Church,
Aldean, of course.
Jason Aldean. We've done stuff with Kelsey Ballerini, Maren Morris. I mean, and then we've gotten to play the Oregon Jamboree the last several years, 4 or 5 years. I think this would have been our 6th year playing it if it was happening, but of course it got canceled. But and with the Oregon Jamboree, then there's tons of major label acts that we're playing like right before, like on the main stage, that we've played with. So we've had phenomenal opportunities. This last year we got to play Country Jam in Colorado, and that was fantastic. And so I mean we really the list has gotten quite lengthy as far as country artists primarily that we've played shows with.
But it's still been just grassroots, DIY, do it yourself. That's kind of been our thing. And we take our truck, we load it up, and we take our gear and our merchandise and ourselves, and we just drive across the country.
Our 12 large black bins
and we're literally playing everything from like house concerts to festivals.
That's amazing. I asked about just the pairings, just because I wondered if there were any artists that really just felt like it was a perfect match with you guys, where you felt like, oh, you know what, stylistically and personality wise, because that's a huge thing when you find an artist that you think, oh my gosh, we are 2 peas in a pod, right? I mean, their band and our band.
I don't know if we found that.
I don't think we found that yet.
I don't know if we found that. There's a lot of artists that we love, like Eric Church, for example. We didn't get to meet him.
No,
we got to play that show, and it was amazing. I mean, we love Eric Church. We love his writing. We love his approach to what he's doing with his career and has done. But that doesn't necessarily align with our brand and our sound, the way we do things, So that's a tough one. I don't know if we found that artist yet. No. That is a great question.
To be found.
Yeah.
TBF.
We're just such a bizarre, I don't know. We're a little bit of everything. I don't know.
That's a beautiful thing. I mean, it could be a curse and a blessing, right? Because, somebody that's out there that's really trying to produce big shows might think, you know what, I think they'd be great with X, Y, and Z band.
Yeah.
But if they also don't want to overshadow. You don't want Cloverdale to overshadow those bands, right? If you have a big dynamic show, and the artist that they're trying to pair you with is kind of a subdued, more melancholy. Not gonna work.
That's not gonna be good. No.
And we dig artists like that too. That's what's funny. And we've done shows like that.
But we would not be. There have been a couple shows where that exact same thing that you just mentioned happened, and literally people then were leaving for the headliner, and it was like, no, that's not good. Go back in. Please go back in.
Right. It's crazy. You mentioned doing the Eric Church show, but not getting to meet him. Isn't that bizarre, right? That you think,
well, it just depends on how they bring him out and, where they're at. But most of his band we ended up chatting with, which was awesome.
Yeah, they were super sweet.
And, Tim Ellis played that show with us too, because that was right around that same time. It was shortly after we did the Kenny Chesney show. So it's like the doors were opening up for all these other opportunities. And that's how we got that gig. But it was like, we saw him get on the stage, like with his road manager, walking him on the stage. And then as soon as it was over, we don't know where he went. I mean, somewhere to the bus, to the hotel. We don't know.
But and that's okay too. Like,
it is okay.
And I was gonna say we did a show with Winona Judd. Didn't meet Winona Judd, but met several people out of her band. They were all super sweet. And what's funny is so many people don't think about it, but so many artists are actually fully just introverts.
Yeah.
Like they seem very extroverted because that's their job, and when they're on stage, they become very extroverted. But the majority of artists that we know are, with the exception of me.
I was going to say you guys are as far from that as possible.
No, Chad actually. So what's funny is Chad is an introvert.
I'm like an extroverted introvert.
Yes.
You know,
he is a very functional extrovert.
I'd be fine just like going and being quiet. I know it's crazy, but that's not. I get exhausted. I get exhausted easily from social, areas. Like it's,
I am not that way. I am the extrovert.
That's how this whole balance works. How,
But you're a very functional, extroverted introvert. Like
it's true.
That's why nobody knows that you're an introvert, because when you're in a social situation, you do a fantastic job of being But a lot of artists, like a lot of creatives, are actually very introverted people. And so there is a lot of that where they do their thing, and then they retreat into their bus or their little space, and with just people that they are the closest to, and they don't want to be around the public. And honestly too, we've now done enough shows, and if I could give one piece of advice to artists that open for these artists, it's like, okay, I realize you want your picture with them. I get it. Like, I get the fact that you want to be able to tell all your people, hey, I opened for so-and-so and I've got my picture with them. But it seems pretty darn desperate. And a lot of those openers that are really hungry for it, they sweet talk and weasel their way into that picture. And the artist that you're opening for, that doesn't make them like you more. It's not at all.
You're not getting more opportunities.
Exactly. That doesn't actually necessarily open the doors that you're hoping. Instead, be really cool. Be like, if you're not a cool person, then I don't know what to tell you, but be actually really cool and nice to your sound engineers. Be really cool and nice to the band members that are out there that are not the big stars necessarily. Be really cool, but genuinely cool and nice to those people. And those are the people that in the long run will actually remember you and pump you up or drop your name in a pot for an opportunity. And very rarely is it the actual artist. And there are a lot of, like, I would say mid-level artists that we have played shows with that had a big hit at the time that haven't heard from since, but had a big hit at the time. And it's usually that it's right in the middle. So you got to be careful with the middle, but right in the middle where people feel like they have this sense of, like, I've got to act a certain way, and I got to be cool, and I got to have this ego, and I've got to be the rock star. And oh my gosh, it's the worst possible thing. Cause then too, like, if you don't have another single after that, then you're actually sort of in a worse off spot than somebody that's just, like, for us, we've enjoyed just slow and steady wins the race. It's just, we just keep doing those.
Yeah.
It's just, it's
and it may just be like that for as long as we continue doing this, and we're okay.
We're okay with that.
Well, that's an upward trajectory right there that you're
exactly.
aiming for.
So, I'm good with it.
That's called progress.
We're like this, we're reevaluating. Yeah. But if it's if it's just slow and steady this way, it's fine.
Maybe a few little,
Oh well, of course, COVID, but
surgery.
Oh yeah, that's another one too. Well, I mean, overcoming health issues just prior to COVID, right? I mean, can you just imagine having a worse opportunity, just a worse sort of speed bump
situation?
But those things they're speed bumps, when I talk about, this progress and not perfection. You're never going to hit Everest, but we were talking just before we went online about Mr. Rogers, right?
Mr. Rogers. Let's bring it back to Mr. Rogers.
I think, all right. So my goal as a human being is to try and contribute to make the world a little bit better than when I got here. Right. So as a steward of the planet, I try to make sure that the planet is just a little bit better than when I was, hatched. So I know as a good human being, if my goal is to be the Dalai Lama or Gandhi or some, altruistic being that is just all loving and unconditional,
right.
Mr. Rogers, right? I mean, I could try my damnedest, and I'm never going to be at that level. That to me is Everest, right? But I see Mr. Rogers as being a base camp on the way to Everest that is almost attainable. So if you can go for small base camps, and you're going to go through valleys and
absolutely. Yeah.
I think,
that's a great analogy. By
I
the
do
way.
like that.
I haven't heard that.
Mr. Rogers is a base camp. I love it. I love it. That's fantastic. Yeah.
As a human being, right? We were talking about, what he did, what he's contributed as a child, right? You talked about your favorite episode. And if you think
Crayon Factory, y'all. It's a Crayon Factory.
Really, I mean, what he represented was so much about, if you think about spirituality or whatever, you think about being a person that can love unconditionally in this time right now where the world is really chaotic and there's a lot of negativity. If you think about the people that you respect and you admire that can be positive influences, right? That's for me. I don't turn the news on. I can't watch the negativity. It just, for me, it's all the stuff that's outside my control. But if I watch somebody like a Mr. Rogers, and I don't mean to, to put it down to that level, but all that show was about was acceptance and humility and respect and kindness, and so when
loving your neighbor,
it's a beautiful thing, loving your neighbor. Exactly. Knowing that you're special.
Exactly.
I think, and I'm not trying to be on a soapbox, but I think what the world needs right now are more Mr. Rogers in this planet.
Absolutely.
I think it's why the documentary that came out about not just the Tom Hanks movie, but also the documentary that came out about the same time or just prior was a huge deal, because everybody our age and, like 28 and older remembers, growing up with Mr. Rogers, and that was where the world was simpler. It was nicer, it's kinder. Yeah. And I think I love that music can kind of equate the same sort of thing. I mean, you can pass positivity in. There's a real positive side of the music that you guys have been writing that is, it's just like the assembly or the lunch things that we were doing back in the day, right? There was nothing destructive or negative about those things. And some might think that's contrived and cheesy and cliche, but truthfully,
it's really who we are.
Not just you, but I mean, I'm talking about the message is so important, and I love the fact that everything you've done has been authentic. It's been sincere. You've kept your humility. You've gone after this thing with the right aspirations, that you don't want to have success and fame at the sake of, forgetting where you came from. Or
exactly. I was like, for the sake of success and fame, like that's, and that's actually a really good way of putting it. Like not having success and fame for the sake of having success and fame. Like, and there is a difference. I mean, there are people that will do a lot of that will really kind of sell their souls for, a certain amount of fame and success, and especially in this business, especially in this town. And kind of like what I mentioned earlier, we know a lot of really incredibly successful, wealthy people that are some of the happiest people we know and some of the saddest.
Yeah.
It goes into that whole category of like, money doesn't buy you happiness. It may buy you some like peace of mind for sure. Like, I mean, it's great to know where your rent or mortgage is, coming from, and to know how you're going to feed your family or feed yourself for the next month, et cetera, et cetera. But it does not buy you happiness. It does not buy you loved ones. It does not buy you actual security. Like that's all kind of like this the smoke and mirrors of what the music business kind of promises,
right.
And or entices people with, and that's not really necessarily a real thing. We did something recently that with everything going on in the world right now, and with all of the the social justice issues and everything else, and the issue of racism. And once again, I mean, I'm not going to get on a soapbox on this one either, but my grandma was a women's rights activist and a civil rights activist. And the home I was raised in, the way I was raised was good and bad comes in every color, including the one I'm in. Like it literally has more to do with a person's character than anything else. And there were so many things coming out that were so awful, and people were saying such evil things to each other on both sides of, all of the fences right now. There's so many fences. But it was so important to me that we remember. So what I did was I went back and I read Martin Luther King Jr.'s "I Have a Dream" speech. And I would recommend, if people have not read that in recent history, go back and read it, just for the sake, like look at it through the lens of like just humanity lens, let's put it that way. And there were so many things that I took from it, but one of the things that he said, and I'll probably misquote it, but I'm going to try not to, is he said, it's not the words of our enemies that we'll remember, but the silence of our friends. And that to me was like, oh my gosh, like I can't be silent. I have like so many people like that. This is just, it's so important to me to actually say something. So for us as musicians and as songwriters, it was like, well, how do we say things the most authentically from our perspective? And that is by writing.
Yeah.
So we wrote a song called The American Dream, and we haven't recorded it yet, but we just did a quick little video in our living room and posted it on our Facebook. But one of the lines in it, and it was just the whole Mr. Rogers thing, it was, and this has been so important to us during this time of COVID, we've gotten to spend a lot of time in our neighborhood. And so one of the lines in the song was, our kids are going to learn how to love their neighbors by watching all of us love our neighbors. And that is how the next generation is going to learn how to shift this narrative of like hatefulness and negativity, regardless of what you believe, regardless. It's just that you know, that just love that you truly can have. It doesn't mean that you have to necessarily even like everybody all the time, for sure, but just that respect and love that you have. And our kids are going to learn how to love their neighbors by watching us love our neighbors. If we're not doing that, then why do we expect our kids to be able to do that, or the next generation? So anyway, that's just like a little side thing, but that was like something recently that was kind of, you know, big, important thing.
It doesn't seem like a side thing to me. Honestly, that is that I love it. That's the kind of messaging that I would love to promote and really perpetuate here. Because I think right now, not only is the country sort of a divided edge in a lot of different ways, you know, but the world is struggling with, you know, this pandemic and not looking at ways that we can contribute and find silver linings to be productive and be positive. You talked about working in your community, in your neighborhood, and really there are things that you can do to be both a collaborative person and contributing to the greater good, you know, in the neighborhood. So
I asked my mom when all this was happening, and I said, you know, what would grandma have done? And she said she would have invited everybody over for dinner. And I'm like, okay, which is awesome, except for that I can't invite everybody over for dinner right now, but I love to cook. So instead, what I started doing was I just started making food for neighbors and just taking it. I started baking bread, and we just drop off bread.
It's amazing. Just like the look of like,
you're bringing me a loaf of bread, like
that is amazing. Just that little gesture.
It represents so much. Honestly, you're vulnerable, you know, because then you bring in, you know, this is me being authentic to you, just providing you something versus people being closed off. You know, I love it, man. I can't wait to hear it. The American Dream is the new song that you said.
So that, I mean, we've been writing a ton this past season. Initially we didn't. So for those people that are watching that didn't know, so I had major surgery at the beginning of December, and the recovery from that ended up being about 6 months. Well, it was almost 4 months, really.
4 months, yes.
Of a recovery. It wasn't supposed to be, but it ended up being about 4 months. And so we went from that to then the pandemic, and you know, so it was like one thing after the other. It
was like being in isolation and then coming out of it going, yay, and then back in isolation.
Back in isolation.
Nice try.
Nice try. Psych your mind. But and initially everybody was like, oh, well, you're, you know, during recovery, you're going to have so much time to write. And honestly, to be perfectly, I was so not inspired at all. And I love lyric writing, and I love just writing in general. I love songwriting, but I was not inspired to write anything at all. I mean, I had all this time, but that was not in my, and I tried, but it wouldn't have been good. Let's put it that way. It wouldn't have been authentic.
Felt forced.
Yeah. Like it would have been a good time actually to write for other artists, because it takes you like, that would be different. But now what we found is then, you know, COVID hit and everything else. And it forces you, I think, this particular time, looking at those silver linings, to be re-inspired about what it is that you love about music and why you're doing what you do and all those things. And so for us, because we've also been doing so many co-writes the last several years, that's really the Nashville way. And even when we lived in Oregon,
why we came here.
And ultimately, even when we lived in Oregon, we did a lot of co-writing as well. But this next project, whatever we record next, we've kind of already decided, I think it's all going to be songs we've written, just the two of us, because it's literally just spoken and done through the lens of, this is us in this season. It's as authentic as it's going to get. And yes, for us, it's been very important. always with our albums and our writing, we write about the goofy and the funny and the sad and the just the real, because like, and the parties and all those things, because that is the actual human experience. It's not all dark and dreary. It's not all up all the time. It's not all, party all the time. It's, somebody dies from cancer, and we can also hang out at the lake and have a beer. Like those are all parts of the human experience. And so for us, that is why we have all of those pieces. And this next record that we do, we have so much already written for it, but it does cover all of those things. It's not all just dark and dreary and depressed, because that was the season we were coming out of.
Because that would be easy to do, right?
Oh yeah.
But was it cathartic? Was it helpful to write that way, to kind of pull yourself out of that spirit?
I was gonna say, I've been there have been so many nights recently where I've been just sitting at the piano and writing, and then Chad will come and he'll sit in the room, and
man, you are on fire. Whereas this, it's just like, it's like, it was kind of like there was nothing for that period of time.
For a long time.
All of a sudden it's now just like, she can't keep it in.
Yeah. It's like, I have so much to say.
I'm like, what are you doing? You got to get it out.
That's a gift, honestly, to be able to have that part of your voice, not your literal voice, but being able to have that, the passion to be able to drive that. Truthfully, I mean, I understand the lack of inspiration. I haven't played drums since February. I played.
Wow.
I look at them and I'm thinking, I need to play with an ensemble. I need to play with a band. I need to play on stage. That's just like, for me to go out there, it just makes me sad. That's just like, it's but
I think it could be healthy a little bit too. Because then when you come back to it, it's just going to feel like, oh yeah.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. I believe that for sure. But I think I think about what you guys went through this last year, and you've had adversity in the past. It's amazing that you've continued, you work together, as this united couple. I remember early on when we were playing shows together, and some other musical friends were laughing because you guys were so gorgeous, right? You're like this beautiful couple, and you're thinking, oh my God, they can't be a great band too. And the fact that you've, been out there just following your dreams the right way, just like you've been good to your bands and good to the people that have influenced you.
We love our guys.
And I don't call like the people talk about fans, and I truly believe that you've made a family out of people that have supported you from the beginning too. I know that people that have followed you from the South Lake days and earlier really do consider it to be, part of your community in a family way. I think
every single record we've ever made has been, really crowdfunded. And it's so funny because we always know when it's time to make a new record, because our fans are like, when is the next Kickstarter? It's not us putting one out there. It's literally, we just in the last 6 months, we're like, well, it's time to make a new record, because we've had so many people. When is the next Kickstarter? We're in, and it's during a pandemic, but people still want new music, and people love. So like with our last Kickstarter, what we did is we went Nashville honky tonk style, and we put every contributor's name in Sharpie on our bathroom wall
live
here in Nashville.
So we would do it live. We'd get on there and
we thank them and put their name in Sharpie, and it's still there on our bathroom wall downstairs.
That's
smallest
great.
bathroom in the world.
It's like this tiny little bathroom, but it's like the whole wall is covered in people's names, everybody that contributed, and then. But it's so cool because people come up to the merch table and they'll tell, my parents or whoever's at the merch table, they'll be like, my name is on their bathroom wall. And it's a big deal because it's like they're part of our journey. Yeah. They're a part of our journey.
Not through numbers.
No.
I was just going to say,
it's not like a fast pussycat
thing. No, what a really great way to help them embrace being a partner with you guys. There's a lot of people, the people that believe in you, the people that haven't gotten to hear you guys yet. I want them to know that sincerity and authenticity of Chad and Rachel is the entity that is Cloverdale is a pretty special thing. I for those of you that are watching this on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you're at, make sure that you check out the Cloverdayle.com. It's Cloverdayle.com. Don't look up the movie soundtrack stuff.
That would be Cloverfield, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. And
Cloverfield.
Yeah, there's not
or
David,
Coverdale, like
not David Coverdale.
Like, not
yeah,
the same thing.
there.
No, yeah.
Well, I know that there is a Cloverdale Dale, but it's another artist, I think. But if you're thinking about Chad and Rachel, you got to say like Nashville, Cloverdale, right?
So, Cloverdale.
Yeah.
Oh, I like that. We should start using that. Like it's like it's got the y'all in
being
there.
around the South so much. It's amazing how much that just rubs off on you.
Oh.
Like we totally get into the draw, and we don't even know we're doing it.
I don't hear it at all. I don't hear it.
Okay.
No.
Well, I think we're being like,
and I was gonna say,
it's when we're tired.
Give us a couple of beverages, and after when we're tired, and all of a sudden it's like, how y'all doing?
Oh, yeah.
Fine.
You switched, didn't you? I bet you're not Midori Sours now that you're in Nashville. I bet there's a different like.
I love it.
Yeah, I remember.
We have not had a Midori Sour since.
You actually tried to make one for our friend.
Yes. Who's a college student, because I was like, well, this was what I drank.
It was not the same. It's amazing.
Well, it's like you're luminescent. It's not a good thing. Like you shouldn't be putting that into your body. But no, we have not had a Midori anything for a long time. No, we switched quite a long time ago. But
Nashville, you get in trouble. I think if you drink that, you get beat up.
Oh, probably. It wouldn't be taken overly seriously if you had the Midori Sours. No, we have not had those in a long time. But that is very funny that you brought that up. But
I love that.
Speaking of the old days too, because you mentioned Jennifer Batten earlier, and it's so funny because not related, and it's so I hadn't even thought about it until now. But we started when we first moved to Nashville, and we started doing the cross country trek. We initially we were thinking we would do fly dates, so we would fly out to the Northwest and we'd come back here. And I was like, you know what, financially, because I'm the budgeter, I'm like, financially that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We're gonna be back and forth like 16 times this summer.
Use the brains.
No, that's not true. So I but I was like, okay, well let's figure out, we have so many fans and friends and family across the country. Like, let's just figure out if we can route this in such a way and do like house concerts or neighborhood concerts and see if people would be willing to host.
The one we experienced.
So going back, I'm like, so it wasn't because of that, but all of a sudden we just said that was the first house concert we'd ever experienced was at your house.
Before we knew of a thing called house concerts.
It wasn't
it wasn't really happening.
But you were having them at your house.
Right.
So I think it was Jennifer Batten, wasn't it? She was doing house concerts at your house in the living room.
Yep.
Screen projector.
Your kids were like tiny little guys, and I mean,
loved it.
It was so fun.
Stuck with us.
Special time to have, because really, I mean, just I don't have a huge house, so to try and pack.
No, everybody was squeezed in. It was so cute.
We couldn't do that now with the social distancing thing.
No,
and then she too started doing the same kind of thing where she got an RV and she was doing clinics and all these other shows. It's crazy that she'd go to Japan or Europe, they have these huge shows, and then she'd come back to the US and just book these tiny little house concerts or 100 or 200 seat.
It's fun though. The house concerts are some of our favorites because people are so up close and personal, and it's like the Bluebird in that everybody is listening. They have such a different appreciation for your song. They feel way more invested in your music.
More of a lasting impact.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's coming from the house concerts, which I think that's potentially how it's going to change. Where if you can do it outside and people are, separated enough that you can still have something that's engaging, but safe.
Maybe. Yeah. Hopefully.
I don't know.
Hopefully.
I don't know what's next.
Isn't it? I mean, you really can't speculate, right? We could have I was thinking about a couple of things when you were talking, because Rachel, you gave so much great advice about how to talk to young artists and ways for musicians to approach the scene. And I had asked early on in the conversation, like, what would you say if you could go back 20 years ago? Would it be different, right? And I think because of all the experiences you've had, because of the artists you've performed with, and the collaborative songwriting you've done with people, and the pits and valleys, and the base camps that you've had along the way, there is a different message that comes from wisdom. And I just think I have gotten a lot out of this, just in terms of like my understanding of what you guys have gone through. I when we watch on social media, we don't get to understand, you
see a lot of the good stuff for sure, on everybody's social media. And they've got a filter on it. So, you don't see the zits and everything in necessarily the same way. So it's like, when it's real, it's real.
I appreciate the fact that you've been authentic that whole time. Really, I mean, it is what's, I think it's one of those things that's going to keep people following you guys and supporting you and believing you. I think it's what, made Tim so special. We talked about Tim Ellis, and
we miss him so much.
I think that Tiffany, his daughter, was getting that, the documentary distributed. I would love to see if it hit Netflix or something like that. I
would love that.
But it was mind blowing. I think everybody, people didn't know him because the story was so special.
Yeah. Well, we felt incredibly honored to be asked to be part. We got to be on it, and we got to tell some fun Tim stories. It was actually there's so many great Tim stories, but most of the funniest Tim stories have nothing to do with music. And I think that's great. And if you look at what a legacy that man left, it's a great inspiration for all of us, just going because a lot of his legacy was musical, but a lot of his legacy was not.
It's true.
And it was him as a human being, and
he kind of encompassed almost everything we've been talking about.
Yeah, that's true. But the story that we told in the documentary, I think that they put this part in there. I'm not thinking of it clearly, but Tiffany was like, wait, what? It was so shocking to her when we told her the story. So we had gone to an Applebee's after a show.
Of course,
because we'd already gone to Stanford's in Lake Oswego, and it was closing.
Yep,
it was closing because it was like 10 o'clock. Of everybody,
so
we were all going to go, and Tim's like, no, we're going to Applebee's.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so then we went to Applebee's, and in order to get to Applebee's, if anybody knows that particular, I realize people are watching
walk around,
but no. He decided he wanted to climb the fence to get there. So we're all like in our, after gig wear or whatever, and we're like climbing the chain link fence between Stanford's and Applebee's. We get into Applebee's. We go sit down at this table in the bar, and Tim disappears, like seemingly going to the restroom or whatever. Comes back, sits down, so we're all just chatting. All of a sudden, the server comes up, and I'm not joking you. He had 40 Jell-O shots on this tray.
It sounds miserable, doesn't it?
There were literally 8 people at the table, 8 people, and he brought. They did not get used, these Jell-O shots, but
no.
But this person brings over 40 Jell-O shots, thinking that, and we're thinking like, oh, he's just walking around all the tables and selling them, And he starts putting them down, and I'm like, what are you doing? And Tim's like, they were $1. Oh my gosh! You were like, at that point, you're just like, you're a 50-year-old man, like you don't need to be ordering 40 Jell-O shots.
That was the.
But that's classic Tim.
It was a classic Tim, man.
But Tiffany, his daughter, was like, he did what? I'm like, oh, sorry.
I think Tiffany had that sort of that shocked look everybody she talked to, because that stuff didn't come home. He did what? Yeah.
And it's amazing how much it didn't come home. Because you saw him around his kids, and he was seemingly very much the same, but it was just certain things that he chose to do in front of children versus not.
When he was he knew how to let go and relax, because actually he was never really relaxed, but he was it was
he was always on.
Amazing, man. 110% all the time. I can't wait for the Cloverdale documentary to come out. It'll be a story. You get
behind the music. It's going to be a lot of this.
It definitely would not be the dirt. Even called the fluff. I don't know.
No. I would bet there's stuff that people just haven't quite gotten to see, but you can say that for a different podcast. I'm glad to see you healthy, Rach. It's really nice to see. You guys both look amazing, man. It's crazy, you guys don't look like you've aged one bit, which is a beautiful thing.
Perfect. It's to 28 again. I was gonna say you too.
That's all white right there. That's
not. No, it looks distinguished, though. Yeah, it looks distinguished.
It looks bleached, right?
Exactly.
I love it. I love it.
It looks bleached. Well, and it was funny because we were talking about the last time we saw you in person, I think, was the Motley Crue Kiss concert.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that was in person. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The last time I saw you in person was at the Motley Crue Kiss concert, and we saw you briefly like outside in the backstage area because we were out backstage. So it
was like 10 years ago or more.
No.
Was that 10?
No.
It may have been.
No. We hadn't left for Nashville yet, but I want to say it was like the year before that. It was probably 8 years.
It was at least 8 years because I had some drinks that day, and I haven't had a drink in 8 years. And you know what? I think it was actually just before you had stopped having the drinks. Because
because I do know that you'd had some drinks that night, but but then I think I remember seeing shortly after that that then you were no longer having the drinks. So
I don't remember.
It wasn't because of that night.
I saw you there.
It wasn't because of that night, no, but I do remember it. No Midori sours, but no Midori sours, I think Tim drank enough for everybody, so we didn't have to.
That's true. Right? Tim had us all covered just with the
I'd try to keep up with him on stage.
Oh, it's impossible.
No, I know. I'd fall off my drum throne. I'd try to keep up with him.
There's no way.
And so it was actually Tim is the reason why you haven't had a drink in 8 years.
I just, because I couldn't keep up, I figured may as well just cash it in.
If I can't win at this game, I'm not playing.
That's
I'm not
right.
playing anymore.
That's right. I don't know if I can hang in Nashville though, right? Because that's kind of an expected thing. You know what? I joke. There's a ton of friends that are in Nashville, and I know plenty of them that are sober. And
I was gonna say, we have a lot of friends that are sober. So I would say that, you're in good company wherever, because you're a fantastic hang, regardless of if you've had any sort of alcoholic beverages. You can have your tea and be just as fine.
That's right. Here's to Mr. Rogers and
exactly. Yes, cheers to Mr. Rogers.
And 5-Star Guitars again. Thank you guys.
Yes, 5-Star Guitars.
Folks, if you've been watching the show, like I said, if you're on YouTube, then you already know. I'd love to have you subscribe to this channel. If you're on Facebook, please go over to youtube.com/allaccesslive with Kevin Rankin and subscribe, because we've got this archived on the website as soon as we get done. And we'll have great other artists and guests like Jim Riley from Rascal Flatts tomorrow, Brad Watson, and Paul McCartney's stepsister and aunt, on Thursday. So we've got a lot of fun guests. If you would like to, actually, you're going to do this. You're not, whether you like it or not, you're going to go to Cloverdayle.com. You're going to bookmark that, because the American Dream new track from Rachel and Chad will be out there, and you can look through their archives of past shows and music and support them while they're doing this pandemic, so that you can jump in on the Kickstarter, help get the new record, right? And I would love that people at least go back and look at the early days and imagine Chad, Rachel, and I on top of picnic tables and lunch tables in high schools playing for those high school kids. So
let's relive that again.
When you're back and they open up schools, let's go do it.
Okay? Let's do it.
I think it'd be so fun.
Thank you so much, man. I'm really
thanks for having us, Kevin.
Kevy.
I've loved it. And you guys, if like I said, if you go to accesskevin.com, this will be archived in about 15 minutes, and you'll have a link to the Cloverdale website. Thank you guys so much. You guys have a beautiful day. I know your family's waiting for you upstairs, right?
They are, yes, downstairs. But yes, exactly.
It'll be dinner shortly.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Well, enjoy your dinner. Thank you guys for spending the afternoon with me.
Absolutely. And, thanks for having us.
Happy Monday, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow at this time. You guys have a great day.
Woohoo!
All right, we'll see you guys.